Seems fair to me. If you don't know what fair is, you can't make it look
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
I know what you're out there thinking. You know, there was going to be an announcement this week, and we put it off, you know, from last week, and it doesn't involve Charlie. He's just off tonight, and I'm going to help bring in the new year with my friends here. And that announcement was that my oldest daughter, Bryson, is engaged to a nice gentleman named Tyler. So.
Yay!
So anyway, we're all very proud in the Reid household and also all the family out there as well. So sitting in for Charlie, we're going to bring in the new year with Wendy, Wiese, host of
Happy New Year.
wonderful show on KTRS. A founder, Bill McClellan, formerly of the Post-Dispatch, still writes a column there though, so I guess formerly is a little bit formal, unformal. Another founder, Reid Hartmann. Also at KTRS and rawnews.com. And sitting in for me, kinda, Joe Holleman from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas and prosperous New Year coming up. We're going to kick around some topics. What a year it was. Biggest news story might, because it's the biggest payday, the largest of this kind for any metropolitan area probably in history. Joe, we took Stan Kroenke to the cleaners. How are we going to wrinkle out this money? Where is it all going?
Oh, no, that'll be a disaster. But for right now, it's the #1 story for a couple of reasons. One, it's $790 million, and it's money that a whole lot of people a couple of years ago thought we were never going to get. There were naysayers all along the way. And also at the bottom line, Stan Kroenke has to give us $790 million. So there's also that revenge factor to it. But I think as far as, you know, and there's always a handful of stories that could qualify as this was big, this was big. But I think one that actually has a concrete potential for making improvements in this area, $790 million is serious money. So I think that's kind of the biggest story of the year, and I think it's one of those that was good news. I think anything would be hard-pressed to knock that out of a #1 spot, and that's kind of where I'm at. There's some contenders, but the idea that we got any money at all off Stan Kroenke, I think surprised a lot of people. And the fact that it was roughly close to $1 billion, I think that's pretty cool.
A bigger story, anybody? The
No,
money
I'd say it surprised me, and I was a naysayer.
Yeah, I was just going to say the fight now over the money, but you beat me to the punch. I was going to say, like, I didn't think that we could win the case, and I still think it was in doubt until Mr. Kroenke pulled his deal with his fellow NFL owners and said he wasn't, you know, I'm going to pay for all this, you know, legal challenges. I think they're still working on him, and the first part was you're going to pay that money, you're going to settle this case, and I still think he faces even bigger judgment by his NFL owner. Period.
Well, and let's hope for a Christmas miracle, because it really is very similar to It's a Wonderful Life. He's always reminded me of Mr. Potter. I mean, Stan Kroenke has always reminded me of Mr. Potter. But this is a lot of money. After the lawyers get their cut, it's going to be about $500 million. And I am hopeful that there will be some consensus and happiness, and you know, in terms of the way that it is distributed. But I am also cautiously optimistic about it.
Certainly, it's a huge story. I mean, I don't know. I think in St. Louis, like everywhere else, but it's not unique to us, year 2 of COVID is a pretty big story, and all the corollary, the mask wars and the county government turning into
we're getting there.
No, I'm just saying that you're talking about what the big stories are. No, I'm just saying that those are another big story. As far as this particular one, I'm the only one I think in print that's proposed a $393.46 solution, which is to simply take the total revenue and divide it by the number of residents of city and county, and everyone gets $393.46 per person, which would be a lot more stimulative to the economy. I think the story 2022, one of them is going to be how this the incredible battle. And I would add this. I'm torn because on one hand, St. Louis has established itself, I think, nationally as the city with the smartest lawyers in the country and most underrated, because I was one of the naysayers. But part of them being so smart was there's no way they should have got 35% of the entire settlement and it was because they're so smart at that. But you know, at the end of the day, it's fine with everybody because the area got over $500 million. So good, hats off to the lawyers. But part of their being smart was their ability to get the full
Well,
commission.
I don't begrudge him that. I mean,
I've given it to him.
I've
given it to him. I said that. No, I'm just saying they shouldn't have. But thank you for getting it. We wouldn't have got the money without him. But it's a little uncommon for lawyers to get that higher percentage of that big a settlement.
Well, I think since we're looking at $500 million, I think they're worth it. I just hope we don't squander it.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that even though I think it's the biggest story of the year, I am sure that the biggest stories of 2022 and 2023 will be how those funds are mismanaged.
Exactly.
We are handling them over to governmental entities.
That's right.
For gosh sake. So, yes, there's going to be some squandering going on, but at least for now, we've got the money.
Such optimism.
Such reality.
Well, when we came into 2021, a mayoral election was on the cusp, a few months away. The administration did change, and Tashara Jones was elected mayor. And as we've gone through, we've had some, disruption at jail sites. We've had some, actually, ward reduction went smoothly. It's been quite a year just in the city. And Bill, obviously, crime is still out there and still a problem. But it just started a discussion on rounding up. Where are we at as we head on into 22 in the city of St. Louis?
Anxiously awaiting the money from Stan Cranky. I mean, it was an okay year, I thought. Like you say, crime continues to be the big shadow over the city, but Square establishing itself in the old Post-Dispatch building seemed good and a good sign. And Cortex continues to pump along. So and I thought that Mayor Jones dealing with the developers and asking that money be put toward the north side as well as the central corridor was a good thing overall. It's just, like I say, crime is such a heavy cloud over the city that until there's some kind of handle on that, things aren't good.
And I do think it was historic, first of all, that we have the first African-American female mayor. I think that's important, but I think Tashara Jones has done a number of things that are very good. One of the things is, and it's going on right now, is she's really standing up for St. Louis against what is, I think, an oppressive state government. And it's a bit of a Twitter war she's got with Eric Schmidt. But,
a bit.
Well, but I mean, good for her, because St. Louis needs somebody that's willing to get in their face. And keep in mind, it wasn't that long ago before she got it, we were all talking about airport privatization, a lot of stuff that was pretty distracting. And I think she's made nobody's going to be transformational overnight in that job, but I think in general she's made good judgments and is doing a better job of striking a balance, as Bill said, with developers and stuff. So I think she's off to a good start.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, about making decisions as the first female African-American mayor of St. Louis, because I was a little confused or concerned, I think flat out concerned about the Post editorial, because they seem to imply that with all of the violence that could be traced to Reid, the now closed nightclub, restaurant, bar, what have you, that they were implying that she did the right thing in spite of the fact that Reid was owned by a black female. And I just really couldn't believe the inference that she even did the right thing, as if the sisterhood would preclude her from making the right decision. That surprised, that frankly surprised me.
You know, I read it, and you're right. You're right. for some reason, I just didn't. It didn't reflect on me like that, and
That's because you're not a woman.
Okay, I was just going to say,
Seriously.
like, right.
Well, I'm not-
Yeah.
It
But
didn't,
no,
it
good
didn't
point.
surprise
Excellent
me
point.
because if you look at what the Post-Dispatch has written about Tashara Jones, and you talk about a war, their editorial page has been at war with her for a couple of years.
And they
at
even
least.
made that.
So-
They made that
Right.
point.
No, I know.
I
I'm
think
saying
that's a healthy thing, Ray. I think when the editorial page is against, is actively opposing political leaders, that's generally a good thing.
Not if they're unfair to them. I'm not talking about taking them on once they're mayor. And in fact, I think their tone changes when somebody has power. I'm talking about how unfair they were to her. In my
Well, I'm not
opinion.
sure they were
I'm not
unfair.
sure.
Ray, I'm sorry, Joe.
I'm not sure they've been unfair. I thought they
Over the
most
years?
recently pointed out, I think, 2 facts that I thought were eminently fair. They were facts. 2 of her successes have been is Mayor Jones has been smart enough to realize that you don't necessarily have to carry through with bad promises made during a campaign. Promise defund the police. When the editorial actually pointed out she's actually adding a little more money to get some police. We're going to close the workhouse. That was a great idea. Well, the workhouse is still open a little bit. So I will give her credit for realizing that there's 2 different things. One, getting elected. When you make all the promises to get your supporters out, then there's the point where you actually have to run a government. And she seems to be equipped to do that and willing to do that.
All right.
She
You
did
mentioned
not
the
promise to
editorial. I'm
defund
coming
the
to you, Ray. You mentioned the editorial in the Post-Dispatch. Now, one of the things it kind of said was suddenly kind of the grown-ups in the room when it comes to the politics in the region are in the city of St. Louis. And meanwhile, in the county, Ray, it for a while there anyway, it's a little bit quiet maybe for the last couple of weeks, but it was a deal a day. And it just, I know, you know, COVID played a role and people are just kind of like out of control. But your thoughts on county government as we head into 2022?
Selfishly, I like it because on Tuesday night, I'm on every night at 9 o'clock, and the microphone comes on, and you got to say something, as Jack Buck used to say. And I'll tell you what, the county council's full of...
It keeps you going.
Keep good content
Gives you a lot of
provider.
content.
And I can remember a year, we've talked about this further, we go decades on this show when I'm talking about the county council, and now it's a laugh a minute. I'd say, you know, I think County Executive Sam Page has really, although I will say this, he's getting along great with Tashara Jones, and that's a good thing in general for city-county cooperation, but I think he has continued to be disingenuous. I think he's continued to be inaccessible. And for a guy that ran the county council as the county chair, he's unbelievably disrespectful of the role of the county council. And what I think the story of the year has been how 2 Democrats, Rita Herdays, the county chairwoman, who got elected over his
Despite
his efforts, and Shalonda Webb have joined, 2 women of color have joined with 2 white Republican men, Tim Fitch and Mark Harder, as a voting bloc. And I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like that in our area. That kind of, and I think it's a healthy thing, frankly.
And we'll see if the Sam Page, Tashara Jones partnership, how well it lasts when this cranky money starts going around.
That's
when the
exactly
county's
right.
already saying that maybe a third isn't quite enough for the county.
That was Ernie Tragus, I think.
Well, and for many years, the feud between county executive and mayor of St. Louis had to do with the fact that the county executive was Republican.
Right.
Through the years of
And the
McNary
mayor
and Milford.
was
And the mayor
Democrat.
was Democrat.
Right.
So when you have both Democrats, or if you had both Republicans, there's at least going to be a veneer of sociability or,
Right.
you know, social friendliness. And I think that's where we're at. But once you start throwing that $500 million on the table, then we'll see whose friend is whose.
Yeah, it's funny. A year ago on this show, we were talking about what a bad idea Better Together was. But
Right.
you
Wow.
forget, like, you know, like,
Wow.
oh, yeah, that's right.
You talk-
Okay.
You talk about irony. If Gene McNary, the Republican, and Vince Schamoe hadn't been fighting when we came on the air in '87
Football.
Football.
over a football stadium,
Right.
we probably would be rooting for the the St. Louis football Cardinals, and A, we would have never won a Super Bowl, and B, we wouldn't be having audiences go nuts for the Kurt Warner story in St. Louis. Just saying.
All right. Well, it's 2 years now, Wendy, and COVID is still with us. But what do you foresee? This time next year, we're kind of finally overcoming it. Are we still going to be in the midst of it? And will people finally see the light and get vaccinated?
Anybody that listens to our program knows that I have mentioned this a couple of times over the last 24 hours. Yesterday, we visited with ABC correspondent Aaron Katersky, and he delivered a report from New York. And the tone in his voice, it was such a tone of resignation. He said, there's really nothing more to say. Beyond, we've said it until we're all blue in the face. The hospitals are full of people who are unvaccinated. You have the rare breakthrough case, of course, with this Omicron and Delta before it. But the story is the story. Get vaccinated or don't get vaccinated, and stay in your house. I mean, until we figure that out. I had my 3rd shot a week ago, and you feel great because you're doing everything you can to protect the people around you, not just yourself, but the people around you. Politically, I think it's kind of interesting because Eric Schmidt is the foundation of his campaign is COVID, really and truly, and denouncing the reaction or the response of the government to it. I think that's kind of a precarious hook to hang your hat on. Because things could change, and they could change for the worse.
In Missouri, I'm afraid it's a good solid.
Maybe
hook,
maybe
a primary.
Put your hat on. I mean, it's strange and crazy, but I think it's good politics, bad governance.
Gosh.
I think there's also a case of the COVID situation, coronavirus, whatever you want to label it, needs to be divided into a question where I think the question is coming from. Is I think, first of all, if you're not vaccinated by now, it probably means you don't want to or you can't be for some medical condition. So it's not a case of, hey, is there a virus going around that I need a vaccine for? So you've made a conscious decision to get vaccinated or to not get vaccinated. The questions that come from that then, so you have people who you say, well, you're opposed to vaccines. Not at all opposed to vaccines, and I think millions of others are not opposed to vaccines. Where the opposition starts coming in is on these mask mandates, which are willy-nilly, piecemeal, some here, some there, that seem ineffective unless everyone's going to do it or no one's going to do it. And what I see out in public, mask mandates are going to disappear simply, eventually, and you've already seen it happen. People are just not wearing them.
Right.
If you've been vaccinated and you have your booster and you say, I've done everything the government asked me to, I'm not wearing this mask anymore. Are you going to arrest all those people?
Right.
So at some point it becomes a law that you cannot enforce, and it becomes like bootlegging. And so eventually it just kind of goes away. But I think the issue needs to be looked at as a difference between vaccinations and mask wearing mandates. I think those are two issues that are pulling apart now.
Well, the stat this morning was 3 COVID positive tests per second in this country. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Joe, but I don't think you can argue that the masks are ineffective unless everybody wears one. I mean, I think like if you go to the store and most people are wearing one, it's still more effective than if nobody's wearing one.
And I think
it's effective.
I just disagree with you. I mean, that there's a wide, giant swath of the medical and public health community that just doesn't agree with what you said. They believe that masks do prevent the spread. And what bothers me about the argument, and if there were mandates, real mandates, I probably would agree with you, but there aren't. What the government has done is issue mass guidances. And in a world, if we had the world we had in the 1940s during World War II, where there was a sense of shared sacrifice and patriotic duty to one another, not to infect each other, this wouldn't be an issue. But we don't live in that world. We live in a very partisan divided country. And the fact is that masks are important as a tool to stop the spread or slow the spread of the virus. And just saying that you're against mask mandates isn't going to change that fact.
And I believe that the lack of the shared sentiment is the one that's being held by people who refuse to get vaccinated, not on the people who get to refuse masks.
Yeah,
I want someone to tell me what the mask will prevent me from getting. The CDC just cut down the isolation period.
I understand they did that,
and they're
but
getting criticized
CDC,
by one side because of the science.
You find me a physician or an expert at WashU, SSM, SLU, any of them that will tell you that masks aren't an effective part of the strategy. None of them say they're going to prevent the.
And they also they're supposed to help the other people more than you, Joe.
That's right.
That's what they all say.
Besides, Joe, everybody knows they reduced that incubation period because the NFL playoffs are about to start. We can't have our star football players.
I thought, for 18 months they made decisions based on science. Now all of a sudden the other side says, oh, they abandoned science.
Now
it's the NFL.
They're basing it on Aaron Rodgers.
I think you got a good point on the question of how the CDC just overnight changed it.
I'm not arguing the science was coming in and people are actually looking at it.
Especially as we're being told how dangerous this is.
I think
even though it's not as severe.
Actually, I think it's widespread and contagious. I haven't heard anyone say that the Omicron is as dangerous as the original virus.
It's more contagious, less
contagious,
which is the characteristic of a virus, that they become more easily caught and less dangerous as it goes along with each variant.
They're really dangerous.
We got to move on.
They're dangerous to the people who are in the hospital.
We are a couple of days, 2022. Okay. I was going to say, the NFL has the science, and they got to find $780 million someplace. Right. So, let's cut down that incubation period. All right. We're headed into 2022. Predictions. I'll start with you, Ray. What do you see? Who do you want to talk about 2022?
Well, first of all, as far as COVID, it will be the big story again, but I don't think anybody can rationally say what they think is going to happen. And of course, being known for bad predictions, I'm not going to try. I think, and I think my boy Lucas Kunz may shock the world this year. If he can get the nomination on the Democratic side, and at the rate he's raising money, I think he can. I think he can beat either of the Erics in the Senate race. And I could be wrong. I realize that, but I think he speaks American. He speaks Missourian, and we haven't seen a Democrat do that as well as he does since Mel Carnahan. So we'll see. He's an outsider. He hadn't been tested, all that, and everybody says, oh, Democrat can't win Missouri. Jason Kander only lost by less than 3 points against Roy Blunt in a year that Donald Trump won by 18.
Wendy, anything real quick?
But Vicky Hartzler, Hugh Hewitt, John Hancock, everybody is saying that Eric Greitens, that he doesn't have a chance with women. Plenty of women voted for Donald Trump. He is clearly hanging on to the back of the Trump train still. So as much as I thought he was over when we found out what we found out, I think he's the favorite, isn't he?
Yeah, I think that Greitens is going to win the nomination, and then I'm one of those people who say a Democrat can't win in Missouri anymore. And I think the big story in the city is going to be early on when the Supreme Court has to make a decision about Kim Gardner and whether there was professional misconduct
William
there.
Tisby, right.
And I think that's a very difficult decision because I think there was misconduct there, and I think that if the Supreme Court comes down hard on Kim Gardner, there'll be huge racial problems. And if they try to finesse it and just say, well, she did some things wrong and she's on double secret probation, maybe it'll go away. But tough times are coming.
You know what, Bill? I disagree with that.
Okay.
I really do. I think even, within the black community, I think there comes a time like enough is enough. And unfairness or whatever. I'm just saying if it comes to that, I don't think you will see just huge on the street public outcry.
I hope you're right.
I
We'll
really
know.
don't.
Speaking of that Post-Dispatch editorial, it couldn't have been clearer.
Yeah.
That was a very public thwack of Kim Gardner, and while they are exalting Mayor Jones, so maybe.
All right, Joe. Anything?
Well, you know, I quit making political predictions once Donald Trump got elected because I didn't see that coming in a million years. But I'm willing to say that Aaron Rodgers will return to Green Bay.
There you go. Cheese heads.
All right.
Yes.
Hey, I can top that because I tell you, like, it was before Donald Trump, and you know, to tell the truth, Mr. You know, hey, I'm with John Edwards. I was like, ain't nobody named Barack Obama going to get elected president of the United States in 2008. Right. So, you know, I was so wrong about that like I gave it up too. Real quick one, I think the St. Louis Cardinals will rue the day that they fired Mike Schilt. So I think that was a mistake. I think it'll start playing out next year, and we will see. Now I'm sure the new manager is watching the show right now, and you know.
Welcome to St. Louis.
Yeah, you know, man, we're kind of tough when we talk about the Cardinals, and the Reids are available for a suite of your choice if you would like to, you know, kind of get with us. Well, anyway, to all of you who have been watching all year long, we really do appreciate it. It's been a long year. All right, it's been a long year. It's coming to an end, but hey, the best thing about 2022 could be that we're going to have Donnie Bash again.
Yay.
All right. I don't think we've got any letters this week, but in case you want to send one, send it to Donnybrook, care of 9 PBS, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. You can send an email to Donnybrook at 9pbs.org or send a tweet to Donnybrook STL. For those of us who check us out on a podcast, you've got your choice there. I always forget the name of one, so you know better than I do, young people and old people and all people. Joe Holleman, thank you for sitting in with us, bringing in the new year. Once again, thank you guys for watching. We do appreciate it. Look forward to being here all throughout 2022 and beyond. And what year is this, Ray and Bill? What year are we about to start? We always.
I guess we're finishing 34. Martin would always say we're in our 35th season then next year, I guess, because it was 87. I can't believe
right.
With no broadcast talent. That's what's
all right.
Son was born in 87.
Well, there you go. Right. That's how I
35th.
always know how long I've been on the show because my youngest daughter, Blaine. All right, we're out of here. Happy New Year.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.